And today we have the Sarah Boone attorneys meeting. These were her former attorneys that represent her before. They were court-appointed attorneys, and they want their money. So a while back, we covered Winston Hobson. He filed a motion to get his attorney's fees because he tried to get it approved by JAC, and he wanted to get the full $15,000. I think Patricia Cashman as well, Frank Bankowitz. And he was denied because they said that, hey, because you guys weren't on the Sarah Boone case from start to finish, to the very end and to the point where she would get convicted or acquitted, you don't get the full $15,000. And they're saying, well, we put in this amount of hours. We met with these experts. We met with her. We did a lot of research in the background. We went over Patricia Cashman's motion as well. And she detailed how many hours she worked, all the research that she did. And I really enjoyed that. I really liked reading that. And so now they're having a hearing today because they want to get paid. JAC was like, no. What you're supposed to do is y'all need to divide it between the 3 or the 4 of you guys, because I think there's technically 4 court-appointed attorneys. I think one of them was it a Mark Consalo that was on her case for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, but I don't know if they did any work or anything like that. We haven't really heard from that attorney, but we know we've heard from Winston Hobson, we've heard from Patricia Cashman, and Frank Bankowitz. Just a refresher, Frank Bankowitz was Sarah Boone's 6th attorney. He worked with her for a couple of months, tried to withdraw back in December. The judge didn't allow him, and then 9 months afterwards, after working with Sarah Boone again, put another motion to withdraw, and at that point, the judge did grant it. Then afterwards, Winston Hobson was appointed, and then it was Patricia Cashman, and things just didn't work out. And at that point, the judge was like, hey, Sarah, you're going to have to represent yourself and you're going to have to go pro se. So now we're going to have this hearing. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. And hello. Now let's get to today's hearing about the attorneys. Like I said, these attorneys, they want to get their full $15,000 because, they said they worked a lot on the Sarah Boone case. And even though they never made it to trial, they still put in a lot of work, effort behind the scenes, experts and all that stuff. So we have a different judge who's overseeing it. Judge Lisa Munyon. Yeah, the 12-minute video, I still don't know where that is from, but I keep hearing about a 12-minute video. But the thing is that when Patricia Cashman, when she wrote down the hours that she spent on the Sarah Boone case, she did mention there was a video, but did she say it was 12-minute video? Because I know we've seen was it like a 3-minute video or something like that, or less than 1 minute video? It was listed in Discovery. Because I remember it being listed somewhere, and then I never saw it listed anywhere else. But we'll see when the trial happens. I mean, guys, it's going to be, in 2 weeks?
Next up is 2020 CF 2603, State of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Mr.
I know. I felt bad for the other attorney who's like, you know what? Like, I billed for 20 grand. They're only willing to pay me 11. I don't have any fight in me anymore. Okay, whatever. Pay me the 11, JAC. Let's just move on. I felt so bad for that guy. It sounded like he was utterly defeated.
Lake, you're here on behalf of JAC.
I am, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Cashman, you're here as one of the attorneys on the case.
I am, Your Honor. I'm assuming that, like the last attorney, I will be permitted to stay seated because of the microphone issue.
Thank you. Although I do recognize you're probably like me, it's hard to argue while you're seated.
It's a very unnatural feel.
Who else is here on Ms. Boone's case?
Frank Bankowitz on behalf of Ms. Boone. Judge, I believe.
Hi, Frank. That's Frank Bankowitz there. Okay, so I think a lot of crap, they listen to me because they are boosting up the audio, or something's going on with this audio here. Usually the audio, I got to boost it on my own, but everything's really loud here. So I recommend if it's too loud for you guys, let me know, and I'll try to turn it down as I go.
I said in my motion, attorney number 7, but I think I was actually attorney number 6 on the case. I've had the case the longest of the 3 of us that are appearing before the court now.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Hobson, you were court appointed to Ms. Boone at some point during her saga as well?
Yes, Your Honor. After Mr. Bankowitz withdrew, I was appointed.
All right. So we have all 3 of your bills, and I know JAC had indicated they had no objection to Ms. Cashman's bill, but I did not get a similar statement with regard to Mr. Bankowitz or Mr. Hobson, so I thought I needed to have a hearing with all 3 of you present. I am... Mr. Lake?
I was just saying, there is an objection here because essentially what we're at this point is this is compensation in excess of 5 feet because there's 3 attorneys involved. So there's no line item objections per se because these are all flat fee bills, but we're basically objecting on the basis that the total compensation here is going to exceed the flat fee to some extent.
Right. And I will tell you that I am very familiar with Ms. Boone's case because she has gone through many, many attorneys.
I wonder if she was going to say, because I watch the news. We talk about it in the break room. I was kidding.
And has, according to Judge Kranick's order, sabotaged those relationships. And accordingly, attorneys needed to withdraw and new attorneys were appointed. And I do recognize that a lot of work was done for Ms. Boone. So we will start with Mr. Bankowitz, then move to Mr. Hobson, and then to Ms. Cashman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Basically, I had the case for a little over a year. I had 175 hours in the case,
They should all get hazard pay.
including actually 45 hours at the jail with the defendant. When I received the case, I got a box of
Discovery.
crazy information, I'll put it that way. And it was an entire file box, and it took weeks to go through it, categorize it, and kind of figure out what was going on in the case at that point in time. She originally had a privately retained attorney, and I basically received his case and his file because all of the other court-appointed attorneys before me, I believe, had waived any attorney's fees, and because they did basically nothing on the case. The three of us did a lot of work in the case. As I said, I put in 175 hours, and even at the $75 an hour compensation ratio, we're looking at $14,000. Spent a lot of time with Ms. Boone and a lot of time on the case. So I'm requesting a flat fee in this case.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hobson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Your Honor, I got the case from Mr. Bankowitz, and I got the same information. The information Mr. Bankowitz just recited that he had and reviewed, and in addition, of course, his information on top of all of that. I spent some time with the defendant at the jail. I spent a tremendous amount of time with the investigator reviewing the case, talking about discovery, experts, and so forth. I spent a tremendous amount of time with a proposed expert, Dr. Linda DeRay, that it turns out the defendant didn't like her. I thought she'd be great. We talked for dozens of hours.
I wonder if I wonder if Sarah didn't like her because maybe Dr. Linda was like, Sarah, I'm going to just be straight with you, Sarah. I don't know if you qualify for battered spouse. I just don't know. And Sarah's like, you know what? I don't want you. I don't want to deal with you.
Almost daily, extensive periods of time, coming up with theory of defense or theories of defense. In fact, you combine the information from the expert divorce attorney that was privately involved and took the case to right up to the edge for trial, and then had to back out. So I had that information, those boxes or box of information Mr. Bankowitz talked about. I had those. I had to go through those. I gave all that material to Ms. Cashman plus my information on top of that. Spent a lot of time interviewing people about how they'd respond if they were jurors. So I was looking at the case from all angles. I had the case from, I believe, September 23 until May 24. I would say conservatively, any lawyer that had this case can tell you easily they spend at least an hour to 2 hours on this case every single day. Given the information coming in from Ms. Boone, the matter she wanted dealt with, her theory on the law, versus our theory, and it was a constant battle going back and forth.
Wait, what did he say? So I'm trying to listen to what he's saying right now. In my opinion, you can always find someone to say what you want them to say as long as they're getting paid. Not everyone would do it, but some will. Yep, we've definitely watched some trials where I'm like, how the hell did you come up with this opinion? I know a lot of people had issues with some of Amber Heard's experts. There was an expert that was it Letitia Stauch's case? And what was another expert where I was just like, man, this just sounds like bullshit. It just sounds like bullshit to me. The boxer brief, the first lawyer privately retained. Yes, Padilla was privately retained. Padilla done for. This is for JC paying out the court-appointed attorneys. So we have Bankowitz, Mr. Hobson, and Patricia Cashman. There is a fourth attorney, but I don't think they did any work on this case, so I don't think they're seeking any fees. Trooper Paul. Listen, I think Trooper Paul was just very unqualified for what he was testifying about. Or he has a hard time conveying information. I don't know. I felt like when Trooper Paul went up there, I was like, okay, this is the guy here. The crash reconstruction is blah, blah, blah. He's going to explain to us how it happened. There's going to be diagrams. We're going to see like with Alex Murdoch's case, right? What was his name again? Oh, how could I forget his name? What a good expert he was. He was such a good expert when he went up there and described how the shots could have happened with Paul, with Maggie, and then there was like diagrams, there was like angles, there was measurements, there was positions. Man, they did such a good job with that. And then I was expecting that level expertise for the Karen Reed case. I'm like, okay, they must got something on Karen Reed. Let's go. And then when Trooper Paul went up there and testified, I was just like, what the fuck was that? That was not very convincing. Not very convincing at all. We all remember Dr. Spiegel. I'd be willing to bet these public defenders need a form to support a support group after this. I mean, it's kind of like right now, right? They're talking about, hey, we all know about Sarah Boone, okay? We all know about Sarah Boone. Even the judge was like, hey, I know a lot about Sarah Boone. Yes, Sarah Boone, yes, according to Judge Kranick, she sabotaged these relationships with these attorneys that wrote the money. So I kind of feel like this is kind of like their mini support group right now. Hi, good morning, Oahu. How are you doing today? How's it going? Hello? No, I would never do the law school. Nope.
This case every single day. Given the information coming in from Ms. Boone, the matter she wanted dealt with, her theory on the law versus our theory on it was a constant battle.
Okay, so he said that Sarah Boone had her theory, and then they were battling with the theory that the defense came up with, and I guess the theory just didn't match up, and Sarah Boone didn't like what the defense, the attorneys, the experts were coming up with, and so there's a constant battle, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Going back and forth, and you had to deal with the gaslighting.
Gaslighting?
And I told Judge Kranick at the time that I withdrew that it's just was too much. This case required at least 2 lawyers. I told that to Judge Kranick, plus possibly an assistant. I see now the case has 3 lawyers.
Yeah. So he's saying that, like, this case is too much. You need to have 2 attorneys on this. Sarah Boone currently has how many attorneys? She currently has 3 attorneys and 2 assistants that are helping her out with this case, because it's a lot. And especially since, the deadline was coming up within less than a month, but still a lot. Especially if you have other things on your plate, as these attorneys probably had other cases, other clients that they had to work with. Yes, Kenny Kinsey. Thank you. Yes. How could I forget his name? Oh my God. Kenny Kinsey. Such a good expert.
2 lawyers. I told that to Judge Kranick, plus possibly an assistant. I see now the case has 3 lawyers, plus experts that we work at getting, plus investigators. So everything they're doing now, we attempted to do. We made every effort to do all those things. Ms. Boone now has custody of files belonging to myself, Ms. Cashman, and Mr. Bankowitz. We did just put in a tremendous amount of work. It taxed every fiber in your body and the bodies of the assistants or any person that worked with you on this matter. And I think flat fee for each of the attorney would be exceedingly reasonable, Judge. And I heard the judge comments regarding $75 an hour. I won't even speak to that. It would be totally redundant given the expert knowledge of all the attorneys and Your Honor involved in this case and any other case we come to the court. on regarding fees, but this was a extremely difficult case, Judge. Most of the difficulty revolved around just handling the defendant and coordinating the defendant thoughts on how things should go with what our experts were telling us and our investigators were telling us. So I believe the flat fee for each attorney would be anything less than the flat fee would be totally confiscatory, Judge. Thank you so much.
So he was very taxing. It was very taxing for every fiber of his body. Tremendous amount of work. Extremely difficult case. The most difficult thing was handling the defendant. He mentioned about being gaslit. Gaslit, is that how you say it if you do it in past tense? It was hard to coordinate. Let's see, something about coordinating with the defendant and her thoughts, I guess, on how things would go, what the experts and the investigators were telling us. I don't, the last part I wasn't really understanding what he was saying. But yeah, it was probably very hard for all these attorneys to deal with Sarah Boone, especially since she didn't like what they were, how they were doing things. Whew. How is she elected with 2 lawyers if second pro bono new won the case? So one attorney is doing pro bono, and then he got the help of 2 other attorneys. I mean, honestly, I can see why the attorneys are deciding to do the Sarah Boone case because, like I said, I think it's pretty good exposure, especially with, you know, having Court TV, Law and Crime, inviting you back on their future shows to have you as a lawyer expert to talk about things, talk about their cases. And so I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I can see if I was James Owens, I think that'll be really good exposure, you know, because now he could be like, hey, they need me. If they want my opinion on something, they at least know who I am and they can, you know, come at me and, or they can come hit me up and, you know, I can talk on their panel. So I think, you know, to deal with Sarah Boone for what, like 2 months? And then for, if there is going to be an appeal, you know, have someone else, have an appellate attorney work with that. But I think for James Owens, yeah, it could be worth it.
Thank you. Ms. Cashman.
Your Honor, I'm asking for the $15,000 flat fee, and I'm also asking to be reimbursed for the $1,800 that I paid to an expert, and JAC has a copy of my check front and back on this case. One of the issues that always has to be addressed when there are multiple attorneys, and I was the 8th attorney and the 4th private court-appointed attorney, is making a case that is old by purposes, for reasons of being on the docket for a long time, a priority, and putting aside other work. One of the unusual things about Ms. Boone's case was when I did withdraw for ethical reasons, the court found that she had forfeited her right to an attorney. She is charged by information with second-degree murder. There was an unusual amount of media attention on this case. The facts are she's accused of putting her boyfriend in a suitcase. He later dies. There is a video of this that went viral. Because the video went viral, because of coverage by Court TV, News Nation, Fox, the local channels, the Sentinel, and websites such as Know Your Lawyer, Legal Bites, and Bruce Rivers, you had to review not just...
Oh, yeah, that's right. She's the one who put Know Your Lawyers. It's not... It's lawyer, you know, right? Know your lawyers.
Anchor boxes of discovery and work done by the previous
Peter.
attorneys, but stay up to date with what potential jurors were viewing if they were watching it on the internet. There was a lot of correspondence between the defendant and the court. Obviously, I had to review all that. The most recent piece of correspondence when I was Ms. Boone's counsel was the
Know Your Lawyers, lawyer you know's alter ego, warrior ego.
58-page letter
With Mara
that
reference?
she wrote. And again, all these letters are published, they're analyzed. I, like previous counsel, spent an inordinate amount of time with Ms. Boone. I spent over 20 hours during my period of time that I was representing her. I believe that for multiple reasons, the court can find that this case was extraordinary and unusual, and that it would be confiscatory to not pay me the flat fee. And having provided the
Wait, what? I never knew that. Wario's the alter ego of Mario? I had no idea. I actually never thought of it like that. Like, I'm very familiar with Mario Party and all that stuff, but I never knew that was the lore, that Wario was the... Okay, I'm just gonna shut up. I didn't know that.
to not pay me the flat fee, and having provided the requested proof based on the procedure for reimbursable costs, it's my understanding that Mr. Lake is not objecting to me being reimbursed for the $1,800 that I spent to retain an expert who did not have a contract with JAC.
Thank you, Mr. Lake.
Okay, so there are new motions that has been just recently posted on the website. So we will cover it after this hearing.
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. But as far as the issue of the $1,800, JAC has no objection to that reimbursement. That's more of a technicality. The court did approve the expert. This is just the attorney getting reimbursed for expense that we have no objection to. So that's a non-issue. We just need that in the order. As far as the fees are concerned, the issue here is that other than Ms. Cashman, who submitted an hourly statement of 118 hours, none of the other attorneys actually submitted hourly statements, so we are kind of constrained by the statute. The problem is the statute only allows up to 200% of the flat fee in the absence of hourly statements. In other words, the way that the statute is worded very unusually, but essentially what it says is the court can award up to 200% of the flat fee and then it can only go above that if it finds that the case is confiscatory, and then can compensate the attorneys at a rate of $75 an hour. So that's where we get into a little bit of a difficulty here, because double the flat fee here would be $30,000, which is less than each of the attorneys is requesting $15,000 each, would be $45,000. As far as, and at that point, looking at the statute, what we have is, for Ms. Cashman, she got 118 hours in. That would represent at a rate of $75 an hour, $8,850. Based on Mr. Bankowitz's statement, he has 175 hours in, which would be $13,125 at that rate. And Mr. Hobson, he just basically said about 200 hours, which would be $15,000. That's the issue, Your Honor, is that, technically compensation has to be at a rate of $75 an hour for it to go above $30,000. And so beyond that, ultimately, but you leave it to court discretion to determine reasonable fee for each attorney, and we acknowledge that this. I don't think we can even begin to dispute that this is not an extraordinary unusual case. It's just that what the statute says is how the compensation structure is set up, and we have to argue that the court needs to follow that structure.
Mr. Lake, if one bills hourly, can the others be flat fee under your interpretation of the statute?
Until you get to double the flat fee, yes, that works. But once you go above double the flat fee, then at that point, it really should be compensation, should be $75 an hour. However, we also acknowledge that we have had other cases like this where the court has awarded the full flat fee to each attorney, and we've never taken it up. So, it's essentially, we have to argue that you can only go to 200% of the flat fee, and at that point, it has to go hourly. But we also acknowledge that realistically, there is no attorney on the other than somebody who might take the case pro bono for other reasons. There's no attorney on the surface of this planet that would take this case for $15,000.
Your Honor, if I may address.
I don't need to do that, Mr. Hobson. Thank you.
Yes.
I am going to award the $15,000 flat fee to Mr. Bankwitz and Ms. Cashman, and a $15,000 hourly fee to Mr. Hobson. Ms. Cashman will be reimbursed her $1,800 in costs. I will issue an order to that on each of these cases. You've sent me orders electronically, and I will e-sign them. I've got it here. And e-file them in just a moment.
It's like, Mr. Hobson, don't worry. You don't need to talk anymore. I got you.
Mr. Lake, do you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, anything further with regard to this matter?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I would just state that I'm not asking for this cost, but I paid over $400 in photocopy fees costs for material that I sent to Ms. Boone along the way. But I'm not asking for that.
No, ask for it. Please, guys, please get paid what you're owed. Please.
To be refunded to me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hobson.
No, Mr. Hobson, just ask for it. Because if you say you're not asking for the judge, I'm like, okay, fine, you're not asking for it.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Your Honor.
thank you. And we have one last hearing. Let me just enter these orders real quick.
Oh my God, dude, I was so worried. I was like, oh my gosh, what if they had to take the $15,000 and then split it 3 ways? Oh my gosh, what if they had to do that? Oh, I'm so glad they're getting paid the $15,000. It just sucks when you're dealing with, I don't know, like they have to deal with JAC and JAC has like bureaucratic shit. And then sometimes, you know, you get screwed over and then you got to fight for it. Sometimes you don't win at the end, but I'm so glad they were able to get their flat fee. And then Hobson got his $15,000 hourly. The way that was phrased was kind of funny. In terms of how long the trial is going to be, they said it was going to be 2 weeks. When Sarah Boone went pro se, judge says 3 weeks. And then at the last hearing, I believe the judge thinks
All
it's going to
right,
be
the
back
last
to 2
case on
weeks
the docket.
because now Sarah Boone has an attorney representing her. But I think the James Owens, who's representing her, was like, oh, you know, I thought maybe 3 weeks. And then so they're like, oh, I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it seems like the judge thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
It is.
Okay, I think that's it because that's for someone else's case. All right, cool. Well, I'm so happy for the attorneys. It seems like they all got their $15,000 that they've requested. And, you know, I feel like Mr. Hobson needs to get reimbursed for that $400. Okay, don't take it out of your paycheck for Sarah Boone. No, have them pay you. If someone owes you money, have them pay you.